The desert sun hung low over the cracked tarmac of Dusty Trails Airfield, casting long shadows across the rusted hangars that squatted like forgotten relics. Leo Maxwell, 19, wiped sweat from his brow, his grease-streaked hands gripping a wrench as he knelt beneath the belly of a weathered Cessna. The air smelled of oil and scorched rubber, a scent that once sparked dreams of soaring through the clouds but now anchored him to the ground. Leo hadn't flown in years, not since the crash that stole his father, Arthur Maxwell, and left a gaping hole in his heart. The hangar was quiet, save for the occasional clink of tools and the distant hum of a prop plane taking off. Leo's co-workers, a grizzled crew of mechanics, had already clocked out, leaving him alone with the ghosts of his past. His father's voice echoed in his mind, a memory from a decade ago. Asterisk, the sky's not just freedom, Leo. It's truth. Up there, you can't hide from yourself. Asterisk, but Leo had been hiding ever since the official report labeled Arthur's death a pilot error and grounded his legacy in shame. He tightened a bolt, his jaw clenched. The airfield was a graveyard of dreams, and Leo was its reluctant caretaker. His mother, Eleanor, had begged him to move on, to leave the dusty outpost and start fresh, but something tethered him here, maybe the faint hope of unraveling the truth about his father's crash. "Maxwell! You still breathing under there?" A gravelly voice called, snapping Leo out of his thoughts. It was Gus, the airfield's chain-smoking manager, leaning against the hangar door, a cigarette dangling from his lips. "Barely," Leo muttered, sliding out from under the plane. He stood, wiping his hands on his coveralls, his lean frame silhouetted against the fading light. "What's up? Got a rush job. Some hotshot's jet needs a once-over before he flies out tonight. Vance Aerospace. You know the type, rich, impatient, probably thinks he owns the sky." Gus flicked ash onto the floor. "You're the only one left, kid. Don't screw it up." Leo's eyes narrowed. Vance Aerospace. The name stirred something in him, a flicker of recognition he couldn't place. "What's the plane?" "Gulfstream G650. Fancy as hell. Owner's some tech mogul, Julian Vance. Wants it checked top to bottom before he heads to Dubai or wherever rich folks go." Gus tossed Leo a clipboard with the work order. "Don't dawdle. He's already pacing the tarmac like he's late for a date with destiny." Leo nodded, grabbing his toolkit. As Gus shuffled off, Leo's gaze drifted to the corner of the hangar where a faded photo hung on the wall, a younger Arthur Maxwell, grinning beside a Piper Cub, his arm around a 10-year-old Leo. The sight twisted something in Leo's chest. He turned away, focusing on the task ahead, but the whispers of the hangar seemed to follow him, urging him to listen. The Gulfstream gleamed under the hangar's fluorescent lights, its sleek lines a stark contrast to the battered props Leo usually worked on. He ran his hand along its fuselage, marveling at the craftsmanship despite himself. The jet was a marvel, but something felt off. Call it a mechanic's intuition or the ghost of his father's training, but Leo's gut churned as he began his inspection. He started with the exterior, checking flaps and landing gear, then moved to the hydraulic systems. That's when he saw it, an access panel near the rear, slightly misaligned, as if someone had opened it in a hurry and didn't quite reseat it. Frowning, Leo grabbed a screwdriver and popped the panel open. Inside, nestled among the hydraulic lines, was a small black device, no bigger than a deck of cards, with blinking red LEDs and wires snaking into the system. "What the hell?" Leo whispered, his heart rate spiking. He'd seen plenty of aftermarket mods, but this was no standard upgrade. The device was too precise, too concealed. He traced the wires, his fingers trembling as he realized they connected to the primary hydraulic controls critical for flight stability. One wrong signal, and the jet could plummet. "Maxwell, you done yet?" A sharp voice interrupted. Leo spun to see a man in a tailored suit striding into the hangar, his polished shoes clicking against the concrete. Julian Vance, no doubt. Mid-40s, with salt and pepper hair and eyes that seemed to dissect everything they landed on. Behind him, 2 security guards loomed, their hands resting on holsters. "Not yet," Leo said, forcing calm into his voice. "Found something you might want to see." Vance's brow arched. "Something wrong with my jet? I was assured this airfield was competent." Leo bristled but kept his tone even. "It's not the airfield. It's your plane. Someone's tampered with it." He gestured to the open panel. Take a look. Vance hesitated, then approached, peering into the compartment. His expression shifted from skepticism to alarm as he saw the device. What is that? Not sure, Leo admitted, but it's wired into your hydraulics. Looks like it could be remotely triggered. If it goes off mid-flight... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Vance's jaw tightened. You're saying someone tried to sabotage my plane? I'm saying you're lucky I found it. Leo met Vance's gaze, unflinching. We need to ground this jet and call in a bomb squad. Vance's security guards exchanged glances, but Vance raised a hand, silencing them. You're Arthur Maxwell's boy, aren't you? He said suddenly, his voice softer. I recognize the eyes. Your father worked for me, years ago. Leo froze, the mention of his father like a punch to the gut. You knew him. Better than most. Vance's expression darkened. And if you're half the man he was, I trust your instincts. Do what you need to do. Leo's mind raced as he sprinted across the tarmac, the Gulfstream towed back to the hangar for safety. Vance had insisted on boarding the jet to retrieve sensitive documents, ignoring Leo's protests. Now, Vance was striding toward the plane, his guards trailing behind, oblivious to the danger Leo suspected wasn't fully contained. Wait! Leo shouted, his voice cracking against the wind. Mr. Vance, stop! Vance turned, irritation flashing across his face. What now, Maxwell? Leo skidded to a halt, panting. That device, it's not the only one. I checked the logs. Someone accessed the jet systems last night, after hours. If they planted one bomb, they could have planted more. The guard stepped forward, one grabbing Leo's arm. Back off, kid. You're out of line. Let him go, Vance snapped, his eyes locked on Leo. Explain. Leo shook free, his pulse hammering. The device I found was wired to fail in flight, but it's too clean, too precise. Whoever did this knew your schedule, knew you'd be on that plane tonight. They might have rigged a backup in case the first one was found. Vance's face paled. You're certain? No, Leo admitted, but I'm not risking your life on a hunch it's clear. He glanced at the jet, its sleek form now menacing in the twilight. Let me do a full sweep. If I'm wrong, you can fire me. If I'm right. Vance studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Do it. But make it quick. As Leo dove back into the jet systems, his hands moved with practiced precision, but his mind was a storm. His father's crash had been ruled an accident, but the similarities, tampered systems, a sudden failure, gnawed at him. Was this sabotage connected to Arthur's death? He pushed the thought aside, focusing on the task. Minutes later, he found it, a second device, smaller, hidden in the avionics bay. This one was wired to the navigation system, designed to send false readings that could disorient a pilot mid-flight. Leo's blood ran cold. This wasn't just sabotage, it was a death trap. Leo emerged from the jet, holding the second device gingerly, wrapped in a cloth. A small crowd had gathered, Gus, a few mechanics, and local police summoned by Vance's team. The bomb squad was en route, but Leo's discovery had already shifted the mood from skepticism to dread. It's a remote-triggered explosive, Leo said, setting the device on a workbench for the police to secure. This one was in the avionics. If it went off, you'd lose navigation and control. No chance of recovery. Vance stared at the device, his composure cracking. Who would do this? Someone who wants you dead, Leo said bluntly. And they're good. This isn't amateur work. The police cordoned off the area, and Vance pulled Leo aside, his voice low. You saved my life, Maxwell. I don't forget debts like that. Name your price. Leo shook his head. I don't want your money. I want answers. You said you knew my father. Did his crash? Was it like this? Vance's eyes softened, a rare glimpse of vulnerability. Arthur was working on something big for me, a navigation system that could have changed aviation. He died before he could finish it. I always suspected foul play, but there was no proof. Leo's chest tightened. You think this is connected? I don't know, Vance admitted. But you've got his fire, kid. If anyone can find out, it's you. He paused, then added, I'm funding your flight school dreams. No arguments. And if you want to dig into this, I'll back you. But be careful, someone out there doesn't like loose ends. That night, Leo sat in his cramped apartment, staring at the check Vance had insisted he take. It was enough to reopen his father's old flight school, to chase the skies again. But more than the money, Vance's words lingered. Someone out there doesn't like loose ends. Leo's fingers traced the photo of his father on his nightstand. For the first time in years, he felt a spark of purpose. The next morning, Leo stood at the edge of the airfield, watching a Piper Cub climb into the dawn sky. He'd signed up for flight lessons with Captain Reynolds, his father's old friend, determined to reclaim the part of himself he'd buried. The cockpit had once been his sanctuary. Maybe it could be again. Reynolds, a grizzled ex-Navy pilot with a salt and pepper beard, met him at the hangar. "Didn't think I'd see you back here, kid," he said, clapping Leo on the shoulder. "Thought you swore off flying for good." "I did," Leo said, his voice steady. "But I'm done running. Dad would have wanted me up there." Reynolds nodded, his eyes crinkling with approval. "He was a hell of a pilot. And he'd be proud as hell of what you did yesterday. Saving Vance's jet? That's your father's blood in you." Leo managed a small smile. "I just followed my gut." "Your gut's got wings, then." Reynolds handed him a headset. "Let's get you in the air. Start slow. Dual controls. You ready?" The Piper Cub's engine roared to life, and Leo's heart pounded as they taxied to the runway. The vibration of the plane, the hum of the prop, it was like stepping back into a memory. As they lifted off, the ground fell away, and Leo felt a rush of freedom he'd forgotten. The sky stretched endless before him, a canvas of possibility. "Feels good, doesn't it?" Reynolds shouted over the engine. Leo grinned, his hands steady on the controls. "Better than good." Back on the ground, Leo's thoughts returned to Vance's jet and the sabotage. He couldn't shake the feeling that his father's crash was tied to it. That night, he called his mother, Eleanor, needing to know more. "Mom, did Dad ever mention anything about a navigation system he was working on for Vance?" Leo asked, pacing his apartment. Eleanor's voice was hesitant. "He was secretive about it, Leo. Said it was big, something that could change everything. But he stopped talking about it near the end. He was scared." "Scared of what?" Leo pressed. "I don't know," she admitted. "But he left something for you. A lockbox. He said it was for when you turned 18, but I held on to it. I think it's time you saw it." Leo's pulse quickened. "I'm coming over." As he hung up, the whispers of the hangar seemed to follow him, growing louder. The truth was out there, waiting in the skies, and Leo was ready to chase it. The desert twilight draped Dusty Trails Airfield in hues of amber and indigo as Leo sat across from Julian Vance in the mogul's temporary office, a sleek trailer parked near the hangar. The air inside was heavy with the scent of leather and coffee, but an undercurrent of tension crackled between them. Vance, impeccably dressed despite the late hour, leaned back in his chair, his piercing gaze fixed on Leo. "You're more like Arthur than you know," Vance said, breaking the silence. "He had that same stubborn streak. Always chasing the truth, no matter the cost." Leo's fingers tightened around the chipped coffee mug in his hands. The mention of his father stirred a familiar ache, but tonight it was laced with something new, hope. "You said my dad was working on a navigation system for you. What was it? And why would someone want him dead over it?" Vance sighed, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "Arthur was developing an atmospheric navigation system, something revolutionary. It wasn't just about guiding planes, it could detect anomalies in real time, everything from weather shifts to deliberate interference. Sabotage, like what you found on my jet." He called it the compass of truth. Leo's brow furrowed. "A compass? That sounds like more than just tech." "It was," Vance said, his voice dropping. "Arthur believed it could expose corruption in the aviation industry, rigged maintenance logs, black market parts, even corporate sabotage. But he vanished before he could finish it. His plane went down, and all his research disappeared. I thought it was an accident, until yesterday." Leo's pulse quickened. The devices he'd found on Vance's Gulfstream, their precision, their placement, echoed the accident that had killed his father. You think the same people who tried to kill me are behind you Dad's crash? Vance's eyes darkened. I'm saying it's possible. Arthur had enemies, people who didn't want his system to see the light of day. And now someone's gunning for me. That's no coincidence. Leo leaned forward, his voice urgent. Who would have had the pull to cover up a murder and rig your jet? Vance hesitated, then glanced toward the window, where his security team patrolled the tarmac. I don't have names yet, but there's someone I've been watching, Silas Blackwood, my COO. He opposed Arthur's project from the start, called it a waste of resources. If I were gone, he'd take the board in a heartbeat. The name hit Leo like a jolt. Silas Blackwood. He'd seen him on newsreels, smooth-talking, ambitious, with eyes that seemed to calculate every move. You think he'd capable of this? I know he's ruthless, Vance said flatly. But proof? That's another matter. You're the key, Leo. You see what others miss. If you're willing, I want you to help me unmask him. Leo's mind raced. Digging into Blackwood's secrets meant stepping into a world of power and betrayal, a world that had already claimed his father. But the chance to clear Arthur's name, to find justice, was too much to resist. I'm in, he said, his voice steady. But I need everything you've got about my dad's work. Vance nodded. I'll start tomorrow. But Leo, watch your back. The sky's not the only place where things can go wrong. The next morning, Leo stood outside Vance Aerospace's regional office, a gleaming glass tower that dwarfed the Dusty Airfield. He'd been summoned to meet Vance's team, but the corporate world felt alien, like stepping onto a chessboard where he didn't know the rules. His worn jeans and scuffed boots drew sidelong glances from suited executives as he entered the lobby, but Leo kept his head high, his father's memory fueling his resolve. Vance greeted him in a conference room overlooking the desert, where a handful of trusted advisors sat around a polished table. Among them was Silas Blackwood, lean and sharp-featured, his smile as polished as his cufflinks. Mr. Maxwell, Blackwood said, extending a hand. I've heard about your heroics. Quite the mechanic, saving Julian's jet like that. Leo shook his hand, noting the cool, calculated grip. Just doing my job, he said, his tone neutral but his eyes searching Blackwood's face for any hint of guilt. Modest too, Blackwood said, his smile not reaching his eyes. Your father was the same way. A shame what happened to him. Leo's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Vance cut in. Let's focus, Silas. Leo's here to help us tighten security after the incident. His instincts are sharp, sharper than most. The meeting droned on, with talk of audits and cybersecurity, but Leo's attention stayed on Blackwood. The COO's demeanor was flawless, but there was something off. His fingers tapped the table when Vance mentioned the navigation project, and his gaze flicked to Leo more than once, like a predator sizing up prey. After the meeting, Leo lingered in the hallway, pretending to check his phone. He overheard Blackwood on a call, his voice low and clipped. The jet was a setback, but we're not done. Keep the pressure on. No loose ends. Blackwood paused, then added, and watch the kid. He's sniffing around. Leo's blood ran cold. He slipped away before Blackwood could spot him, his mind racing. Blackwood wasn't just involved. He was orchestrating something bigger. But what? And how did it tie to Arthur's compass of truth? That evening, Leo drove to his mother's modest home on the outskirts of town, the lockbox Eleanor had mentioned weighing on his mind. The house was a time capsule of his childhood. Photos of Arthur and Leo in flight gear lined the walls, and the faint scent of his father's aftershave lingered in the air. Eleanor greeted him with a tired smile, her eyes rimmed with worry. "You're sure about this, Leo?" she asked, setting a small metal box on the kitchen table. It was dented, with a sturdy lock and Arthur's initials scratched into the lid. "Your father said this was for you, but he warned me it might bring trouble." "I need to know, Mom," Leo said, his voice firm. "If Dad was murdered, I can't let it go." Eleanor nodded, handing him a key. "He said you'd have his fire someday." Guess he was right. Leo unlocked the box, his hand steady despite the storm in his chest. Inside was a hard drive, a sealed envelope, and a faded photo of Arthur standing beside a prototype device, a sleek, compass-like gadget with intricate dials. Leo's breath caught. Was this the cursed compass? He opened the envelope, revealing a letter in his father's neat handwriting. Asterisk Leo, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're old enough to carry the truth. The compass isn't just a tool, it's a weapon against those who'd sacrifice lives for profit. The hard drive holds my research, but it's encrypted. Trust Reynolds, he knows more than he lets on. Be careful, son. The sky's not safe for those who see too much. I love you. Dad asterisk. Leo's throat tightened, his father's words a lifeline across the years. He plugged the hard drive into his laptop, but the screen flashed with a password prompt. Damn it, he muttered, running a hand through his hair. What's the key, Dad? Eleanor touched his shoulder. He always said you were his true north. Maybe that's a clue. Leo's eyes widened. He typed True North into the prompt, and the screen unlocked, revealing fragmented files and cryptic notes. One phrase stood out, asterisk, cursed compass, expose the network. Protect the skies. Asterisk. The hard drive's files were a maze, schematics, code snippets, and encrypted logs that hinted at a vast conspiracy. Leo spent hours poring over them, but the technical jargon was beyond him. He needed help, and there was only one person he trusted, Captain Reynolds, his flight instructor and his father's old friend. The next day, Leo met Reynolds at the airfield's coffee shop, a dingy spot where pilots swapped stories over stale donuts. Reynolds, nursing a black coffee, raised an eyebrow as Leo slid into the booth, the hard drive in his backpack. Thought you were back to flying, kid, not playing detective, Reynolds said, his gruff voice laced with amusement. This isn't a game, Leo said, lowering his voice. He slid the photo of the compass prototype across the table. Dad left this for me. Said you'd know what it means. Reynolds's weathered face tightened as he studied the photo. Damn it, Arthur, he muttered, then met Leo's gaze. Your dad called that thing the cursed compass. Said it could sniff out any tampering in a plane's systems. Mechanical, digital, you name it. If it went public, it'd burn down half the industry's dirty secrets. Leo leaned forward. What kind of secrets? Black market parts, fudged safety certs, even rigged crashes to collect insurance, Reynolds said, his voice barely above a whisper. Arthur's system could trace it all back to the source. That's why he kept it quiet, and why someone made sure he never finished it. Leo's stomach churned. You think Blackwood's involved? Reynolds shrugged. Wouldn't surprise me. Silas was always slimy, even back when he was just a junior exec. But you need proof, Leo. And that drive might have it. They spent the next hour decoding fragments of the data, with Reynolds guiding Leo through the technical terms. One file mentioned a network of insiders at Vance Aerospace, with coded initials that could point to Blackwood. Another referenced a test flight for the compass, scheduled the day Arthur died. He was testing it when he crashed, Leo realized, his voice hollow. They killed him to stop it. Reynolds's hand rested on Leo's shoulder. Maybe. But you're picking up where he left off. That's what he'd want. Back at the airfield, Leo and Reynolds huddled in the hangar, the hard drive plugged into an old laptop. The decoded files painted a chilling picture. Arthur's compass wasn't just a navigation tool, it was a digital bloodhound, designed to expose any deliberate anomalies in aircraft systems. A single algorithm, buried in the code, could flag hidden control systems, like the ones Leo had found on Vance's jet. This is why they called it cursed, Reynolds said, pointing to a line of code labeled Anomaly Detection. It could have cost people billions, people like Blackwood, who've got their hands in every dirty deal in the sky. Leo's mind raced. If we can finish it, we can prove Blackwood sabotaged Dad's plane, and Vance's. Reynolds nodded, but his eyes were wary. It's not that simple, kid. Arthur encrypted the core algorithm. Without the key, it's just a fancy paperweight. And if Blackwood gets wind you're digging. I'm not stopping, Leo said, his voice fierce. Dad died for this. I owe him. Reynolds studied him, then sighed. All right. We'll crack it together. But you need to fly, too. Arthur always said the sky clears your head. Let's get you up tomorrow. Dual controls, no excuses. As Leo left the hangar, the weight of his father's legacy settled on his shoulders. The cursed compass was more than a device. It was a beacon, guiding him toward justice. But the shadows were closing in, and Leo knew Blackwood wouldn't let him unravel the truth without a fight. That night, he dreamed of his father, standing beside a glowing compass, the sky behind him alive with stars. "Keep flying, Leo," Arthur said, his voice clear as the wind. "The truth's up there." Leo woke with a start, his heart pounding. The compass was calling, and he was ready to answer. The hangar at Dusty Trails Airfield was a fortress of shadows under the midnight sky, its silence broken only by the faint hum of a generator. Leo Maxwell stood beside Julian Vance, the tech mogul's face etched with determination despite the late hour. The air smelled of oil and tension, and Leo's nerves buzzed with the weight of their plan. "You're sure about this, Leo?" Vance asked, his voice low as he leaned against a workbench cluttered with tools. "Blackwood's slippery. If we tip our hand too soon, he'll bury us both." Leo's jaw tightened, his father's letter burning in his memory. "The sky's not safe for those who see too much." "I'm sure," he said, meeting Vance's gaze. "Silas Blackwood's been dodging the truth too long. He's behind the sabotage on your jet, and I'm betting he had a hand in my dad's crash. We set the trap, we catch him." Vance nodded, a flicker of respect in his eyes. "All right. Here's the play. I'll leak a memo to the board, hinting I'm restarting Arthur's navigation project with you as the lead consultant. It'll make Blackwood nervous. He'll think you've got the cursed compass working. If he's guilty, he'll move to shut you down." Leo's stomach twisted. "Using me as bait." "Exactly," Vance said, unapologetic. "But I'll have eyes on you, my security team, plus a few federal contacts who owe me favors. If Blackwood bites, we'll have him on conspiracy, sabotage, maybe even murder." The plan was risky, but Leo felt a fire kindling inside him, the same fire his father had passed down. "What do I do?" "Keep digging into the hard drive," Vance said, handing Leo a USB stick. "This has my old files on Arthur's project, schematics, test logs. Cross-reference them with what you've got. If you can crack the compass's encryption, we'll have hard evidence. And Leo," he paused, his voice softening, "your dad would be proud. You're not just flying his plane, you're carrying his fight." Leo pocketed the USB, the weight of it grounding him. "Let's do this." As Vance's SUV vanished into the night, Leo lingered in the hangar, staring at the faded photo of his father and him beside the Piper Cub. "I'm coming for the truth, Dad," he whispered, the words swallowed by the desert wind. 2 days later, Leo's phone buzzed with a cryptic text. "Meet me at Hangar 7, 10 p.m. alone. J.V." Asterisk. The message seemed legit. Vance's number, his clipped tone, but something felt off. Leo's instincts, honed by years of wrenching planes and sniffing out trouble, screamed caution. He dialed Vance's office, his pulse quickening. "Vance Aerospace, how may I assist you?" a receptionist chirped. "Leo Maxwell for Julian Vance," he said, pacing his apartment. "I'm sorry, Mr. Vance is on a private retreat in Sedona until tomorrow," she replied. "Can I take a message?" Leo's blood ran cold. "No, thanks." He hung up, staring at the text. A trap. Blackwood, or someone working for him, had taken the bait, but faster than Leo expected. Hangar 7 was an abandoned relic on the airfield's edge, perfect for an ambush. He could ignore the message, but if he did, he'd lose the chance to catch Blackwood's men in the act. He grabbed his backpack, stuffing in the hard drive and his father's letter for safekeeping. Then he called Captain Reynolds. "Hey, it's Leo. I need a favor." Reynolds's voice was gruff, laced with concern. "What kind of trouble you in now, kid?" "Big kind," Leo said, explaining the text and his suspicions. "I'm heading to Hangar 7. If I'm not back by midnight, call Vance's security team. And keep an eye on Mom, just in case." Reynolds cursed under his breath. "You're as stubborn as Arthur." "All right, I'm on it. But don't do anything stupid." Leo slipped a small GPS tracker into his pocket, a gift from Vance's team after the jet incident. If things went south, it might be his only lifeline. As he drove to the airfield, the desert stretched dark and endless around him, the stars above a silent witness to his gamble. Hangar 7 loomed like a forgotten giant, its rusted doors creaking in the wind. Leo parked his beat-up truck a quarter-mile away, approaching on foot to avoid detection. The night was eerily still, the only sound his boots crunching on gravel. He slipped inside, his flashlight casting jagged shadows across the empty space. No sign of Vance, or anyone else. "Show yourself," Leo called, his voice echoing. "I got your message." A low chuckle answered, chilling his spine. 3 figures emerged from the darkness, 2 burly men in black tactical gear, and a third, slimmer figure in a tailored suit. Silas Blackwood stepped into the beam of Leo's flashlight, his smile cold as ice. "Well done, Maxwell," Blackwood said, clapping slowly. "You're persistent, I'll give you that. Just like your father." Leo's fists clenched, rage surging through him. "You set this up. You sent the text." "Guilty," Blackwood said, unfazed. "You and Vance thought you could outsmart me with your little memo? I've been playing this game longer than you've been alive." Leo's eyes darted to the goons, their hands resting on holstered guns. He needed to stall. "Why'd you kill my dad? What was he to you?" Blackwood's smile faded. "Arthur was a liability. His cursed compass would have exposed my side ventures. Black market parts, rerouted shipments, nothing too flashy, but profitable. He got too close, so I made sure his test flight was his last." Leo's chest heaved, the confession cutting deep. "And Vance's jet? That was you too." "A warning," Blackwood said, stepping closer. "Julian's been sniffing around Arthur's project again. I figured a mid-air explosion would remind him who's in charge. But you had to play hero, didn't you?" Leo backed up, his hand brushing the GPS tracker in his pocket. "You're done, Blackwood. Vance knows everything." Blackwood laughed, a hollow sound. "Vance is meditating in the desert, and you're here, alone. No one's coming for you, kid." The goons advanced, but before Leo could react, a crash sounded outside, tires on gravel, headlights piercing the hangar's gaps. Blackwood's eyes widened. "What the—" "Leo!" a familiar voice shouted. It was Eleanor, his mother, her face pale as she burst through the side door, a tire iron in her trembling hands. "I followed you. I couldn't let you do this alone. Mom, get out!" Leo yelled, but it was too late. One of the goons grabbed Eleanor, pinning her arms. Blackwood drew a pistol, leveling it at Leo. "Enough games," he snarled. "Hand over the hard drive, or she dies." Leo's heart pounded, his eyes locked on his mother's terrified face. He reached for his backpack, moving slowly to buy time. "All right, Blackwood, you win. Just let her go." Blackwood's smirk returned. "Smart boy. Drop it." But Leo's fingers brushed the GPS tracker, its tiny light blinking steadily. Vance had promised backup, and the headlights outside gave him hope. He just needed to keep Blackwood talking. "You think you can cover this up?" he said, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at him. "Killing us won't stop the truth. The compass is bigger than you." Blackwood's eyes narrowed. "That damn device has caused me enough trouble. Once I have the drive, it's over." A sudden roar of engines filled the air, followed by shouts and the screech of tires. Floodlights blazed through the hangar doors, illuminating Blackwood and his men. "Federal agents! Drop your weapons!" a voice boomed. Blackwood froze, his pistol wavering. Leo seized the moment, lunging at the goon holding Eleanor. They crashed to the ground, Leo's fist connecting with the man's jaw. Eleanor broke free, scrambling toward the door as Vance's security team and FBI agents stormed in, weapons drawn. "Silas Blackwood, you're under arrest!" an agent shouted, cuffing the CO as he dropped his gun, his face a mask of fury. Vance appeared in the doorway, his expression grim but relieved. "You okay, Leo?" Leo nodded, helping his mother to her feet. "Thanks to you. How'd you know?" "Your tracker," Vance said, holding up his phone, which displayed Leo's location. "And your mother called me when she saw you sneak out. She's got more guts than half my team." Eleanor hugged Leo tightly, tears in her eyes. "Don't ever scare me like that again." Leo managed a shaky smile. "No promises." The FBI escorted Blackwood and his men to a waiting van, the airfield now a hive of activity as agents secured the scene. Leo and Vance stood with Agent Carter, a no-nonsense woman leading the investigation. Blackwood, cuffed and defiant, glared at Leo from the van's open door. "You've got nothing," Blackwood spat. "This is a setup." Agent Carter raised an eyebrow. "We've got your confession on tape, courtesy of Mr. Maxwell's tracker. It's got audio, too. You admitted to sabotaging Vance's jet and orchestrating Arthur Maxwell's murder. That's life in prison, minimum." Blackwood's face paled, his bravado crumbling. "You can't prove the crash. It was an accident." Leo stepped forward, his voice cold. "My dad's test flight logs are on his hard drive. Once we crack the encryption, we'll match your sabotage to the wreckage. You're done." Blackwood lunged against his cuffs, but an agent shoved him back. As the van doors slammed shut, Leo felt a weight lift, though the pain of his father's loss lingered. Vance placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did it, Leo," he said. "You got him." "Not yet," Leo replied, his eyes on the horizon. "The compass is still out there. I need to finish what Dad started." Agent Carter nodded. "We're reopening your father's case. Blackwood's confession gives us cause. If there's evidence in the wreckage or the drive, we'll find it." Leo turned to his mother, who stood nearby, her tire iron still clutched like a talisman. "You okay, Mom?" She managed a weak smile. "I'll be fine when you stop playing hero." Leo hugged her, then looked at Vance. "What's next?" Vance's eyes gleamed with purpose. "We rebuild your father's legacy. The compass, the truth, all of it. And you're leading the charge." As dawn broke over the airfield, painting the sky in shades of gold, Leo felt his father's presence, a whisper in the wind. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, justice felt within reach. The morning sun cast a golden glow over Dusty Trails Airfield, but Leo Maxwell felt no warmth as he stood in the FBI's temporary command post, a repurposed trailer buzzing with agents and analysts. The arrest of Silas Blackwood had cracked open the case of Arthur Maxwell's death, and the air was thick with anticipation. Leo clutched his father's hard drive, its weight a reminder of the truth he was chasing. Agent Carter, the lead investigator, sat across from Leo and Julian Vance, her laptop displaying scans of Arthur's crash wreckage. "Blackwood's confession is a start," she said, her voice crisp. "He admitted to sabotaging your father's test flight, but we need hard evidence to tie it to the physical wreckage. That's where your drive comes in." Leo nodded, his throat tight. "I've decoded some of it with Captain Reynolds, but the core algorithm, the cursed compass, is still locked. Dad's notes said it could detect sabotage in real time. If we can access it, we might find a signature matching Blackwood's work on Vance's jet." Carter's eyes narrowed. "You think the same method was used?" "I know it," Leo said, his voice steady. "The devices on Vance's plane were wired to fail mid-flight, just like Dad's crash. Blackwood didn't just want him dead, he wanted the compass gone." Vance leaned forward, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the trailer's utilitarian interior. "I've got my best techs on standby. If you give them the drive, they can crack it. But Leo, this could take weeks. Are you prepared for what you might find?" Leo met his gaze, unflinching. "I've been waiting years for this. I'm ready." Later that day, Leo visited his mother, Eleanor, at their home. She was in the kitchen, her hands trembling as she poured tea. "They're really reopening your father's case?" she asked, her voice soft but hopeful. "Yeah," Leo said, sitting at the table. "Blackwood's going down, Mom. For Dad, for Vance's jet. All of it." Eleanor set a cup in front of him, her eyes glistening. "Your father always said you'd find your way. I just wish he could see you now." Leo reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "He's with me, Mom. I feel it every time I fly." As he left, the hard drive's secrets weighed on him. The FBI had promised answers, but Leo knew the truth would come at a cost. He could almost hear his father's voice. "The sky's not safe for those who see too much." 2 weeks later, Leo stood on the tarmac, watching a crowd gather for a press conference. Julian Vance, ever the showman, had insisted on a public announcement to honor Arthur Maxwell's legacy. The airfield, once a forgotten outpost, buzzed with reporters, aviation enthusiasts, and local officials. Leo felt out of place in his borrowed blazer, but the weight of his father's mission kept him grounded. Vance took the podium, his voice commanding attention. "Today, we honor Arthur Maxwell, a visionary whose work was silenced too soon. His atmospheric navigation system could have saved countless lives, and it will. I'm establishing the Arthur Maxwell Aviation Safety Fellowship, a scholarship for aspiring pilots dedicated to advancing air safety. And I'm proud to announce that Leo Maxwell, Arthur's son, will lead the completion of his father's project at Vance Aerospace." The crowd erupted in applause, cameras flashing. Leo's face burned as he stepped forward, urged by Vance's nod. He gripped the microphone, his voice steady despite his nerves. "My dad believed the sky should be a place of truth, not secrets. I'm here to finish what he started, to make sure no other family loses what we did." As the crowd cheered, Leo caught Eleanor's eye in the front row, her proud smile anchoring him. After the event, Vance pulled him aside. "You're a natural, kid. But the real work starts now. My team's made progress on the drive. They're close to cracking the compass's algorithm." Leo's pulse quickened. "What'd they find?" "Enough to know your dad was onto something big," Vance said, his voice low. "The compass wasn't just detecting sabotage, it was mapping a network of corruption. Blackwood was a piece of it, but there's more. We need you to see this through." Leo nodded, the responsibility settling like a mantle. "I'm in. For Dad." That night, Leo sat in his apartment, staring at the photo of him and Arthur beside the Piper Cub. The fellowship, the job at Vance Aerospace, it was more than he'd ever dreamed. But the real prize was the truth, and it was closer than ever. The next morning, Leo met Captain Reynolds at the airfield for a flight lesson, the Piper Cub gleaming under the dawnlight. Reynolds handed him a folder, his gruff face breaking into a rare grin. "Got something for you, kid." Leo opened it, his breath catching. Inside was a provisional pilot's license, issued in his name. "What's this?" "Vance pulled some strings," Reynolds said. "He dug up records of all the hours Arthur spent teaching you to fly as a kid. Counts as dual instruction. You're not fully certified yet, but you're legal to fly solo under supervision. First step to getting your wings back." Leo's fingers traced the document, his father's lessons flooding back, hours spent in the cockpit, Arthur's steady voice guiding him through takeoffs and landings. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything," Reynolds said, tossing him a headset. "Get in the plane. Let's see if you've still got it." The Piper Cub roared to life, and Leo's hands moved instinctively on the controls. As they lifted off, the desert fell away, and the sky opened before him, vast and forgiving. For the first time in years, Leo felt whole, the ghosts of his past quieted by the hum of the engine. "Nice work," Reynolds shouted over the noise. "Your dad's smiling somewhere, I bet." Leo grinned, banking the plane gently. "Hope so." Back on the ground, Vance called with an update. "My techs cracked the drive's encryption. You need to see this, Leo. Meet me at the office tonight." Leo's heart raced. The compass was within reach, and with it, the final piece of his father's legacy. Vance's office was a fortress of glass and steel, its walls lined with monitors displaying flight data and schematics. Leo sat with Vance and a lead engineer, Dr. Patel, as they unveiled the heart of Arthur's project. The hard drive's decrypted files glowed on the screen, revealing the cursed compass's true nature. "It's not just a device," Dr. Patel said, pointing to a complex algorithm labeled Anomaly Detection Core. "It's a software suite embedded in a navigation system. It cross-references real-time flight data with maintenance logs, supply chains, even black market databases. If someone tampers with a plane, say, plants a device like the ones on Mr. Vance's jet, the compass flags it instantly." Leo's eyes widened. "So it could have caught Blackwood's sabotage before his jet took off?" "Exactly," Vance said. "And it could have saved your father. The logs from his test flight show a spike in the compass's alerts just before the crash. Someone triggered a remote failure in his controls, masked as a mechanical fault." Leo's fists clenched, rage and grief warring within him. "Blackwood." "Not just him," Dr. Patel said, pulling up a network map. "The compass traced transactions linked to Blackwood's shell companies, but they connect to a wider ring, executives, suppliers, even regulators. Arthur's system was a threat to an entire ecosystem of corruption." Vance's face was grim. "That's why they killed him. And why they came after me. This algorithm could dismantle their operation. Leo leaned forward, his voice fierce. Then we finish it. We make the compass public, expose them all. Vance nodded. It's risky, but it's what Arthur wanted. You're in charge, Leo. We'll integrate the compass into Vance Aerospace's systems, starting with our test fleet. You'll oversee the rollout. As Leo left the office, the weight of his father's dream settled on him. The cursed compass wasn't just a tool, it was a weapon, and Leo was ready to wield it. 6 months later, Leo stood on the tarmac at a newly renovated Dusty Trails Airfield, now home to the Arthur Maxwell Aviation Safety Institute. The fellowship had funded a state-of-the-art training facility, and the cursed compass, now officially the Maxwell navigation system, was being tested in Vance Aerospace's fleet. Leo, fully licensed as a pilot and a lead consultant, watched a test plane soar overhead, its systems monitored by his father's algorithm. Eleanor joined him, her face glowing with pride. You did it, Leo. You cleared his name. Leo smiled, his eyes on the sky. We did it, Mom. Dad's truth is out there, keeping the skies safe. Captain Reynolds approached, clapping Leo on the back. Heard you're training the first fellowship pilots next week. Gonna make your dad's legacy soar. Count on it, Leo said, his voice steady. That evening, Vance hosted a private ceremony to unveil the Maxwell navigation system. Leo took the stage, the crowd a mix of pilots, engineers, and reporters. My father believed the sky was a place of truth, he said, his voice carrying over the murmurs. The Maxwell navigation system ensures no one can hide from that truth. It's his gift to us, and our promise to him. As the crowd applauded, Leo stepped down, joining Vance and Eleanor. Vance raised a glass. To Arthur Maxwell, and to you, Leo. The sky's yours now. Leo looked up, the stars bright against the desert night. He could almost feel his father's hand on his shoulder, hear his voice in the wind. Keep flying, Leo. The cursed compass had guided him through grief, danger, and doubt, to a future where his father's legacy would live on. Leo was ready to soar, not just for himself, but for every pilot who trusted the truth of the skies. The end.